Today I'm going to be making custom e-brake cable ends using a homemade mold and some fire. Stay tuned. Okay, so you can see that I 3D printed this little box here with these bumps in it, and that's because I'm going to make a mold, hopefully, for making cable ends out of concrete. So this is made out of plastic. I'll take this out and then hopefully I'll be able to make cable ends with solder. So for a concrete mix, I'm using a fast setting Quikrete. The instructions say to mix it with some cold water, so that's what I'm doing here. Okay, so this is like kind of like liquidy milkshake. I don't know if that's what you want, but I think I'm going to try this out like it is. Trying to get some of the bubbles out. Okay, so it's been about, I don't know, 50 minutes. But you can kind of see it kind of changing state a little bit. So I'm going to try to brush it off. Try to make it flat. Just because it's kind of interesting. Alright, so I ended up waiting overnight on this guy. So easy it is to remove. I'm thinking it's going to be sort of difficult to remove. Just going to stack the edge. So I barely have the edge on my vise. Oh no. Okay, that worked horribly. Yeah, I have to go back to Home Depot to get some other supplies, so maybe I will get some plaster of Paris for this guy. Surprised how weak it is. Maybe it's not cured. Alright, so I ordered some plaster of Paris to give that a go, but that's going to take a day to get here, so I decided to give the concrete another try, mix a little bit less water in with it. I'm also going to try adding some Vaseline to this to hopefully get it to remove easier, so I don't have it sticking and cracking. That's the theory anyways. It's pretty quick to print another one of these if something goes awry, but I think this should work out alright. We'll see. I just wanted to say here, I used a 3D printer just so I could get consistent size voids in my mold, and it was just the easiest, quickest way. If you don't have a 3D printer, you could use something like an old paint cap, a disposable cup or a bowl, and glue little pieces to the bottom that are the shape that you want your cable ends to be. Here I'm heating up the Vaseline a little bit just to spread it more evenly all inside the mold. So I think I'm pretty thoroughly covered. It's shiny in a lot of places, so seems like a good sign. Here I had to add a little bit more water to the bottom because the Quikrete kind of stuck to the bottom, you know, like a powder that doesn't want to mix with the water. It was still a lot thicker than a milkshake though. Yeah, those big rock chunks I guess is sort of the main reason that I am more interested in the plaster of Paris, because those rock chunks are really going to hurt me as far as getting the type of product I'm looking for with this stuff. The sander method seemed to work pretty well to get a lot of the bubbles out of the concrete mix. After I got the majority of the bubbles out, I set it on a piece of cardboard and brought it inside to cure. Okay, so even with the Vaseline, this guy still seems not to, it's been about 24 hours, it still doesn't quite want to come out. And I definitely don't want to break it, so what I'm going to do is two solutions. I printed this guy, which is another mold that kind of made it so these guys right here will pop in, and the idea is that you'll be able to like kind of twist these and pull them out, hopefully. The theory being here that if I pull out smaller sections at a time, it won't put so much stress on the entire molded structure. The other method I'm using here is, since this mold is made out of plastic, I can just kind of melt it until it's pretty soft and gummy and start pulling it away from the concrete, and hopefully that makes it so the concrete can stay intact, doesn't put too much stress on the sides, try to pull itself apart. After peeling away the multi-plastic didn't work, I resorted to kind of cutting it when it was really soft with the razor blade so I could peel it away in sections.
So I at least have one hole that I can use here.
I also used a little bit of brake clean here as a solvent to sort of break down the ABS plastic. To get the individual plastic plugs out, first I tried just using the pick tool, then I tried a pick tool and fire. On the last hole I had to get creative, so I drilled a little hole, put a screw in it, and then pulled it out that way.
Cool. Alright, so let's try a little experiment with solder now. Okay, so I got my silver solder right here, and I've got my little plumber's flux right here. What I'm going to do, this guy looks like he'd fit pretty well in that hole right there. I got the, there's a little sheathing right here. I'm going to put a little bit of flux in here. Now I'm just going to heat this guy up. Then fill it with flux. Or fill it with solder. Starts bubbling. I'll start adding the solder. My cable a little pre-hot as well. And let's stick it in there. Alright, so that's the cable end. Seems to have worked pretty good. Do a little destructive testing that I won't do on my finished cables. So yeah, it's a little bit softer than normal. But yeah, that guy is not going anywhere. So I think that's a really good cable end. Clean this guy up to give you a good idea and just kind of get a feel for cleaning it up as well. Try this plaster of Paris version with the these removable guys. Might be a little bit easier to remove. Kind of getting up out of coldish water. Got pretty good consistency, so go ahead and pour this in. Hopefully it doesn't leak at the bottom.
The sander works really well to clear the bubbles in these little molds. I'd also recommend it in general if you're looking for a random oscillating sander. I've used a couple in the past and they're always big disappointments, but this one cuts a lot of material quickly, which is what I was looking for.
Okay, so this stuff seems to be set up. Does kind of take a little bit of damage, but that might make it easier to remove. So I'm gonna go ahead and start by removing these guys in the bottom. Yeah, that one didn't really want to remove. Can't twist them. Alright, nice, that one removed. But I can see that it's not fully set up in there. It's still wet. So, what that means is I'm going to give it some more time. I'm going to move these a little bit though. Alright, so this has been drying for a little bit longer. See if this is a... I might put that guy back in and see what the other ones look like. Okay, that one actually looks pretty good. Yeah, that's looking good. So yeah, that's not perfect, but that's actually pretty darn good. I think all the difference was you know, doing these inserts, because before these wanted to pull out, even though I have draft on them, it still wanted to pull out on me. These are a lot cleaner holes than the concrete, I think because it's a finer setup. And I tried to remove these earlier, but I'll let this kind of fully dry more. You can see all the lines. I think this is going to turn out pretty good. I'm going to keep on letting it dry. I think it's going to hard up more. It's still kind of soft. Like you can kind of like sand it. But yeah, I think it's been, I don't know, 10 hours, something like that. Still wettish feeling, but yeah, I'm pretty impressed with this plaster of Paris. We'll see how well it takes to heat, and if it works well for, you know, heat type mold, like these cable ends I'm trying to use it for. So, interesting experiment. Alright, so the e-brake setup. So this is the factory e-brake lever, and this is how it works at the factory. Is you put this guy in here. One of these goes to the right, one goes to the left brake. And so since you have two, one goes on this side as well, it kind of self-balances it out, which is a pretty good setup. I like it. I think it's cool. But I need this guy right here, which goes to the rear end that I have. This guy slides in, and this goes to a lever that actuates the brake drums inside the disc. That are, you know, for the e-brake circuit. So what I'm going to do to adapt that, we're also going to have to change the length, we'll get to that in a second, is you go in here, you can just slide this guy past, slide that past, put a bolt in there, and your nut, and boom, that's not going anywhere. So that's another way to kind of bypass this setup. I can make this end look however I want. I need a spot for this guy right here to mount to, so that this sleeve is captured, because I want this thing actuating. I don't want also the cord of the sleeve moving, so I need to space apart, you know, find the distance between these two guys right here. That's why I both have these out, so I can drill two holes that these will fit into perfectly. I think this flat bar will be a good piece to start out with. I'll have to build sort of a structure around it with gussets, because this has got to be a pretty strong setup. Hole right there, hole right there. Okay, let's look and see what size this is. 4.82, so ½ inch is going to work pretty well for this. Gonna make sure this fits.
So it turns out I had to actually re-drill up the holes with 9/16 drill bit, but that worked out really well. Here I'm cutting out the corners of the bracket to match the contour of the underside of the tunnel. Here you can see the shape of the bracket that I chose. I just have a piece of flat bar that I put a triangular brace in the center, and then I'm putting my bolts on either side of that brace. So I really didn't do a very good job filming this part, so I'll just kind of explain it. I basically reinstalled the e-brake handle with the cable installed and the bracket positioned. That way everything was kind of mocked up and I could figure out where I needed to drill the holes. The best position turned out to be right under the battery cutoff box, so I drilled a couple clearance holes in that so I could fit my bracket. After I had my holes drilled in the tunnel, I used the same methodology I used on the flex lines in my last brake video, where I put 2 bolts in the holes and then welded them from the top side so they're studs that stuck out underneath, and I could put nuts on the bottom side.
Here you can see it installed from the bottom side. I attach one of these guys to the brake so that I can get a good idea of what length I need the sleeve to be, so I can kind of put it up to the kind of route it how I want, and then I can mark it and cut the sleeve. Alright, so the first thing we do is I'm going to cut off the end here.
After I cut out the factory cable end, I pulled the cable through the sleeve and cut the sleeve at my mocked up length. Next I clamped the factory ferrule into the vise, and to my surprise I was able to pull out the sleeve so I could reinstall it on my new length.
So that piece should be pretty easy to reuse. There's kind of a little rubber piece that kind of helps guide everything. Maybe I can keep that.
I cleaned up the freshly cut end of the sleeve so I could more easily press it into the ferrule. I also flared out the end of the ferrule a little bit so I could more easily press everything in. Finally, I eyeballed where the cable sleeve would bottom out in the ferrule, and I marked that point so that I could press it in and know that it was fully seated. After I had the ferrule pressed back on, I threaded the cable back through the sleeve so that I could take the assembly underneath the car and mock up where I needed my new cable end.
I'm going to cut past my mark by about that much. So there's the example that I have. So now I need to cut back on this guy to back to there.
You want to clear off the plastic coating on the cable just because you want the solder to stick to the metal. I cleared a little bit past where I thought the solder end would stop.
So now what I'm going to do is dip this in the flux first. Then I'm going to put a bunch of flux in this guy. Now I've never used this plaster Paris cast, so it's going to be an experiment. I think it'll work, but we'll see. I'm a little bit worried that it's not completely dry yet. So that guy's all covered up. So we'll wait till the solder boils up.
Here you can see that the cable didn't want to go into the solder, so I think it wasn't hot enough. I think it was too insulated by the plaster of Paris.
Seems to be really insulated in here. Now I was able to use this. I was just trying it with the example piece. Let's see here. So that guy right there, I didn't strip the plastic off. It would have been a fine connection, but you can see it chipped away around the edges there. I'm not sure if that might be because it's not fully cured. It's been less than 48 hours, so maybe that's something with it, but this piece is still rocking and rolling, so I like this method more.
Even though the plaster of Paris was sort of a bust, I do really like the removable insert mold that I came up with. In the description there's a Thingiverse link to the STL if you have a 3D printer and want to try it out.
So that guy is not perfect. You can see that towards the bottom there's some issues, but I think it's gonna work pretty good for this application.
I think the reason I had issues with this is because of the way I heated the solder on the cable itself. You need to uniformly heat the solder and the cable and then stick it in. When I was heating up this cable end and the flux on it, I kind of dipped it in the solder before it was fully heated.
I'm gonna install this one and do the same thing on the other side.
This cable end turned out a lot better than the other side.
But now it should be done, so I just need to put this in here. I'll show you guys the setup. Alright, so there's the setup. You can see it's gone to both tires. Well, you can't really see that side, but pretty freaking cool. I'm gonna go pull on the brake and see what happens. Okay, so you can see here, I still got some adjustment left on my cable here. But by adjusting the wheel cylinders, or I guess the adjuster on the back of dust cover, there's like an adjuster on the bottom, it kind of extends out and in. By adjusting those guys out, I was able to keep some adjustment on this, and my brakes are stopping. You know, it's not that difficult to shorten those e-brake cables in the event that I need to. I just cut off the end and reinstall a shorter end to those cables. One thing that either I couldn't find the footage for or I didn't film was that I actually put some extra holes in my cable mount there. You can see the cables installed just to give myself a little bit more tension in the system. You know, there's lots of different ways to, I guess, adjust this system, and that's one of them.
So thanks for watching, guys. I'm stoked to have brakes on this car. It's never had brakes with this rear end before, so that was a really cool job, and I think that this method could be used for a lot of different cables. You know, only time will tell how well it holds up in the long run. Right now anyways, it's working great. I want to do a quick shout out to Flavorful Croissants. I reached out to an old friend who's doing this project. He's actually laying down a beat a day, calling it the 365 beat challenge, and it's pretty cool. The song that's playing in the background right now is actually one of his tracks. If you like what you hear, check it out. I have the link to his YouTube channel in the description. He's a really genuine guy, and more people need to know about his music. And if you like any of the other music, I always make sure to credit any of the artists out there that allow me to have music in my backgrounds that I really like and enjoy. I think they add a lot to it. Always check those descriptions if you're curious. One thing I want to include in this video that was in the last one, but it didn't get a ton of traffic, so I'm going to mention it again. I'm thinking of changing my YouTube channel title. I really love the freedom that the name Scrap Metal Made gives me. You know, I could work on a lot of different projects, mostly automotive and motorcycle related right now, but just the philosophy of being able to make things in your garage with what you have or what you can get your hands on. That's really the passion that I want to bring to the table and hopefully share with you guys. So I think the name Alchemy R&D, which the name alchemy has a lot of connotations with, you know, the poppers, who are people who are trying to turn lead into gold, things like that, tricksters. But all the word alchemy means is the art of transformation. So I think what I'm doing in, turning the stuff that I have in the garage or cheap materials into what I would call functional art is really the message that I want to put out there. And the name also has a lot of cachet and is much more searchable than Scrap Metal Made, which is just, a combination of very common words, which is difficult to find in the internet. So let me know what you think. I really appreciate you guys watching. If you want to see more content, please consider liking and subscribing. Share it if you like. The plan for the next episode is to do all the wiring, or at least the majority of the wiring for the car. So stick around for that, and let me know in the comments what you guys think about the name change, or if you have any other opinions. I'm really looking for some feedback. Hope everybody's staying safe out there. Crazy times, and I'll see you soon.